Hello and welcome to Film Takes. We decided we wanted to do a quick episode on The Wild Bunch, a film from 1969, directed by Sam Peckinpah.
It's one of my favorite movies personally, so that's where I'm coming from. It's one of my favorite westerns in particular. Basically, it takes place, does it say what year it takes place?
It's 1911.
1911. Essentially, it's these older outlaws that can't let go. They have to keep doing their thing, and now the West has like become a civilization. You know, it's a real part of the country. It's not just the Wild West anymore. You know,
Absolutely.
one of their former cohorts is now working with
He is now quote unquote civilized.
yeah, and he's hunting them. He's played by Robert Ryan. It's Deke Thornton is the character's name. He's he used to work with William Holden, but now he's hunting them essentially with who's trying to hunt. It's not the government. It's
a train mogul.
That's right. William Holden's the main guy in the outlaw bunch, and among him you have Ernest Borgnine, Ben Johnson, and Warren Oates as really the three other main guys. And then there's a Hispanic actor whose name escapes me who plays this younger
Angel.
guy. Yeah, Angel, who's running with them. There's like 4 major action sequences in the film. The initial robbery at the beginning, you have what happens with Angel, then you have the train robbery, and then you have the final
shootout, yeah.
And I should say, The Wild Bunch was probably the most violent film ever made when it came out, like at the time.
Very much so. It's so incredibly... That was one of my comments watching it. It is incredibly, like, tons of blood squibs, lots of nudity for a film from 69, especially like a older Western.
Like we were talking about recently, the Fury, all the angles you see of the explosion at the end, that's a very, like, Peckinpah thing. Let's, like, give you all the angles of this guy getting shot.
It happens in the opening heist. The editing does the same thing in the final shootout where some guy gets shot off a roof.
Yeah.
And it keeps cutting back to him falling.
The film has, to me, one of the boldest opening sequences I've ever seen, where you see these young kids put a scorpion on an anthill, on a fire anthill, and watch the ants devour it.
Yeah.
And it's just like, it tells you what kind of movie you've signed up for right then and there. You know,
Pretty much.
This is a cold-blooded movie. The first line you hear our main character say is, "If anybody moves, kill them." They're not good men. They are not good guys.
You would argue they need to be put down.
Yeah, and Robert Ryan is probably the most human character in it, as you know, Deke, he's the only one that you really get that much of a human connection with. Other than you do see William Holden's backstory and why he's back in the business. Basically, you know, his lover, got killed while he was having an affair with her. Her husband comes in and kills them, or kills her, and Ernest Borgnine in it is a bloodthirsty bastard. Like, he is not a good guy in any sense. There's nothing really human about him. He just wants to kill people. Right at the beginning, after, the initial bank robbery, one of their friends he's going to die at some point anyways, so William Holden kills him, and Ben Johnson and Warren Oates' characters are like, should we give him a burial? And he's like, oh, should we pray over him too? He's like just making fun of the fact that they would even think of, giving this guy a proper burial.
Yep.
He's cold-blooded to the nth degree. He's a really messed up character.
Cold-blooded.
Yeah, and at the end, when you see him...
That was a John Mulaney reference, and I'm very upset that you didn't get it.
I don't... What's that from?
It's either Comeback Kid or Radio City.
But what's the context of the joke?
Oh...
I do seem
I think
to
it's him talking about his dad taking them through the McDonald's drive-thru.
Yeah, I do remember. He's like, one black coffee. Yeah. My dad was cold-blooded. Yeah, now I remember now. Yeah, The Wild Bunch, I think, is one of the best Westerns ever made. It has so much to say about how the country's changed and and about the genre itself. It's just... I don't know. It's right there with The Searchers for me in terms of just, I don't know. I don't
the thematic material that you get out of it.
Yeah, it's just, exactly. It's like a love letter to the West, but a fucked up love letter in both cases. You know what I mean? It's like...
Pretty much.
And it's a similar reason I love McCabe and Mrs. Miller. It's just
a love letter and a dissection. So I've been holding off on my opinion from you because I wanted to sort of see if this would work better if I held off on my opinion as Mr. Hater over here, but I think you'll be pretty relieved to hear that I did really enjoy it. I do not think it's a masterpiece. It's not close to being my favorite Western. What I loved the most about it was definitely the thematic material, like you were saying. Part of me also feels that the execution isn't quite where I need it to be to really fully engross myself in it. I think there are large chunks of the film where I'm not really as interested or as engaged as I should be. There are moments where it picks up, and I think it's those 4 action sequences that are spread out that are the main pullers. Because, I mean, it starts bang with that robbery, and that's like the first 20 minutes.
Yeah, it's a long action sequence.
Yeah.
All of these action sequences, by the way, are pretty drawn out.
The shortest one is probably when Angel shoots his old lover.
Yeah, they have to get out of there pretty quick.
Yeah.
You just not interested enough in the characters, I guess, to really.
That's pretty much what it is. As a group, as a whole, from the get-go, when he says, I just want to pull one last job, I pretty much understand who they are as a collective group, but I'm not as engaged with sort of each of them separately. I'm not as fully engaged with each of them sort of talking to one another. Maybe that's in the edit of it. Maybe that's in the actual pacing of the writing or the script. It sort of loses me.
One question I do have, and it's not a criticism of your criticism, but I do wonder, do you have much connection to William Holden, Ernest Borgnine, Warren Oates, Ben Johnson?
None at all.
Outside of this film? Okay, I know you've seen Ben Johnson in The Last Picture Show recently.
Yeah.
I think part of it is, like, especially William Holden, Ernest Borgnine, these guys were major movie stars, but William Holden especially, like, I think for me, and probably for a lot of people at the time, there's like, maybe it is a little thin on character in places, but you have such a relationship to these screen icons at this point that you, like, fill in the blanks.
But like I said, though, even though a lot of the film I am super uninterested, the action scenes are a big pull because they are incredibly well edited.
Yeah.
And so fucking intense. Like, as soon as the first bullet fires in the opening action sequence, it's genuinely insane. I'm not usually a big fan of frantic cutting, but I think it works here because of just what they're trying to communicate, the sort of intensity of it. They're really trying to communicate this sense of barbarism with these guys. The action scenes really were the best parts because that's when it feels like the craft of the film is really on its peak.
Yeah.
It was a great moment when Angel shot his old lover. What makes that moment even better for me is that's like one of the times the thematic material really outstretched and grabbed me because he's just so obviously, like, the reason why he's upset is because he's seeing his ex-lover in the arms of another person. That's something that someone who's frantic and childish would immediately freak out about, right? It almost honestly kind of reminded me of the kid in Blood Meridian. He's sort of he's born with this just sort of craving for blood and violence because of his environment, and that's very much, I think, the tragedy of Angel, who is one of the more interesting characters. It's kind of destiny for him to ultimately do this because this is his environment. These are the people he's running with. So he of course he ends up getting himself killed because they take it as a threat against Mapache.
Yeah.
They take it as a threat against him, and they eventually like drag him.
That scene's brutal when they're that's one of the roughest scenes in the film, and that is one of the more human moments for the rest of the guys. You get to see, they do care about this kid. They want to stop this.
Yeah.
That's a great scene. But yeah, that's a rough one.
And then his arc sort of ending at him, the tragedy arc sort of ending at him literally getting his throat slit.
Yeah.
Which is fucking brutal.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Robert Ryan, I should say, is an actor I quite like. Really good actor, and he's one of my favorite parts of the movie, and I think his character is, to me, the most interesting. Mm-hmm. It's like this guy who has left it behind, and
I didn't really get as much development as I wanted from him to call him my favorite character, but I will say, not the ending as in with the whole shootout, but that very, very ending.
I love that ending.
It's so good, and that's where the sort of theming of the film comes full circle for me.
Yeah, where he just like, you know what, I'm gonna go run with these old guy outlaws.
Yeah.
It's a very nihilistic ending.
Yeah, it's him literally regressing back to
exactly, and that's, I don't know. Yeah, that is where his development ends, and he just, like you say, regresses, and it's because he's just seen his cohort slaughtered. He's just, and he was part of it,
The final shootout is obviously incredible. Mapache ends up being a real nasty son of a bitch.
Yeah.
But I will say, one of my favorite parts about the film, one of my favorite moments, is in that final shootout. But it's very specific. It's where Mapache just slit Angel's throat, and they shoot him, and Mapache's dead. It rapid cuts to all the soldiers surrounding them. Then it cuts back to them. Ernest Borgnine. Yeah. It's him specifically. It cuts to him, and he looks over at William Holden. He gets a smile on his face, and it's him reliving this adrenaline of, oh shit, this blinking you'll miss it moment of, we're in deep shit. We have like 0.5 seconds to decide what to do right now, and he's immediately like, yes, fucking, this is what he wants, pretty much.
Let's fucking kill him.
Yeah, exactly.
And
it's such a
and
good
risk
moment.
everything. Yeah, that's the moment of the movie for me. Is just his little laugh. That's what I was mentioning earlier to you. It was like, you must like that part. You know, it's like, yeah, that scene is amazing, and Borgnine's perfect in it. Did you know that Borgnine would go on to play Mermaid Man? Yeah, that's a true story.
Wow.
He's Mermaid Man. Yeah, I'm glad you like the movie.
I definitely enjoyed it.
I'm interested to hear your how many fingers do you give it?
How many fingers can I take from the Wild Bunch?
How many fingers could you take from the Wild Bunch is a crazy question. I'd say let's see, 40.
I was hopping back and forth between two ratings for sure, but with just how strong that ending was, I feel pretty confident with 7 out of 10, 7 fingers.
7 out of 10, so that's a 3.5 out of 5 if you're a Letterboxd user, if you're one of the lords of Letterboxd like we are.
Oh my god, we almost called this fucking podcast Lords of Letterboxd.
It's a good gag. I think you already know what mine is. I give it
1 out of 10.
No, I give it 10 fingers.
There you go.
10 fingers. Everything I got for the Wild Bunch. I love it. It's one of my favorite movies, as I have already said. Check it out if you haven't seen it. If you haven't seen it, why are you fucking listening to this right now? We just spoiled the whole goddamn thing. You idiots. All right. Well, goodbye, guys.